Hare Krishna devotees, today's shloka for the day is shloka number 10 of chapter 8. Prayana kale manasa chalena
Kale manasa chalena
bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva
Bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva
bhruvor madhye pranamavesya samyak
Dhruvor madhye pranamaveshya samyak
satam param purusham upaiti divyam.
Satam param purusham upaiti divyam.
Word for word meaning and translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prayana kale,
Prayana kale,
at the time of death.
at the time of death.
Manasa,
Manasa,
by the mind.
by the mind.
Achalena,
Achalena,
without its being deviated.
without its being deviated.
Bhaktya,
Bhaktya,
in full devotion.
in full devotion.
Yuktaha,
Yuktaha,
engaged.
engaged.
Yoga balena,
Yoga balena,
by the power of mystic yoga.
by the power of mystic yoga.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Bhruvoho,
Bhruvoho,
the two eyebrows.
the two eyebrows.
Madhye,
Madhye,
between.
between.
Pranam,
Pranam,
the life air.
the life air.
Aveshya,
Aveshya,
establishing.
establishing.
Samyak,
Samyak,
completely.
completely.
Saha,
Saha,
he.
he.
Tam,
Tam,
that.
that.
Param,
Param,
transcendental.
transcendental.
Purusham,
Purusham,
personality of Godhead.
personality of Godhead.
Upaiti,
Upaiti,
achieves.
achieves.
Divyam,
Divyam,
in the spiritual kingdom.
in the spiritual kingdom.
Translation: one who at the time of death
One who at the time of death
fixes his life air
fixes his life air
between the eyebrows,
between the eyebrows,
and by the strength of yoga,
and by the strength of yoga,
with an undeviating mind,
with an undeviating mind,
engages himself
engages himself
in remembering the Supreme Lord
in remembering the Supreme Lord
in full devotion,
in full devotion,
will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So in continuation from the shloka yesterday, here the Lord is talking about that yogi who's practicing Ashtanga Yoga mixed with Bhakti. And how should they actually die? Because they are doing a combination of Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti. Then in Ashtanga Yoga, you have to raise your life airs. So the Lord is actually talking about the Sat Chakra Yoga. So by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, he has to remember the Supreme Lord in full devotion. So here, he is not remembering the Supreme Lord as Lord Krishna. He is remembering the Supreme Lord as Paramatma. So if he does that, then he will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We saw yesterday how, depending on the percentage of bhakti that will be mixed with other yogic paths, it determines your destination in the spiritual world. One destination we discovered is the Brahma Jyoti. Another destination is Vaikuntha Lokas. And only those who practice Kevala Bhakti which is 100% bhakti, will go into Golok Vrindavan. But in any event, for all three, some amount of bhakti is necessary. Of course, for Golok Vrindavan, it's only bhakti. But for the Vaikuntha planets and Brahma Jyoti, some amount of bhakti is necessary to perform, even if it is mixed with other transcendental practices. Bhakti is essential for you to go back to the spiritual space, whether it's right outside the Vaikuntha planets, which is the Brahma Jyoti, or to actually enter the Vaikuntha planets or go beyond the Vaikuntha planets into the Golok Vrindavan. Bhakti is essential. So if there is no bhakti, there is no chance of you stepping out of this material world. It's just a matter of how much bhakti is necessary for you to get out of this material world. So here, as we said, the Lord is talking about Sat Chakra Yoga. So these are the 6 chakras in our body, starting with the Mooladhara Chakra, Swadhisthana Chakra, Manipura Chakra, Anahata Chakra, Vishuddha Chakra, Agnya Chakra, and Sahasra Chakra. Each of these is linked to a particular aspect of living one's life. So you can see on the right that the Sahasrara Chakra is called the crown chakra. Agnya Chakra, which is where the Lord is asking us to raise the life airs. That is, if you are a Ashtanga yogi, this is what you would be practicing. Your life airs should come to that Agnya Chakra. So Prabhupada writes that in this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yesterday, Prabhupada said that the Lord has a form that comes out clearly in the 9th verse. Here it is very clear that at the time of death, it doesn't matter whether you're 100% bhakta or you're practicing mixed bhakti. Any which case, you have to remember the Lord, either in his form as Bhagavan or in the form of Paramatma. So the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows to the Agnya Chakra, which we just saw in that figure. The practice of Sat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga. This is the Kevala Bhakti. But because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, at death he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his grace. In the upcoming verse, Prabhupada cites verse number 14. I've just put the verse here. Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yoginaha. Where the Lord says in verse 14, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy, sulabha, to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. If your mind is always absorbed in Krishna, it is easy to remember Krishna at the time of death. That's what the Lord is saying, sulabha, easy. The particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, whether Sat Chakra Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. So as we said, one has to remember the Lord if we want to exit the material world. It's as simple as that. Prabhupada writes, since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. So that means, as Prabhupada is stating, suddenly one cannot remember the Supreme Lord. Some yoga system must have been practiced. And Prabhupada emphasizes, especially the system of Bhakti Yoga. His Grace Chaitanya Charan concludes this particular verse or summarizes this particular verse in a very eloquent way. Since our mind is restless, And Arjuna has complained that the mind is restless in 2 verses in the 6th chapter. And Krishna has agreed with him, yes, the mind is restless. So let the restless mind find rest in Krishna. What do you need to offer the mind? You have to offer it the most satisfying object, the Supreme Lord Krishna. He is the all-attractive Supreme who is our greatest lover and in whom our love finds the greatest fulfillment. So which means the greatest love one can have in one's life is to actually love the Supreme Lord, because he reciprocates with you. Any love in this material cosmos is temporary. That love ends when the body is no more. So relationships in this material world are temporary. It doesn't matter how attached you may be to your family members, to your children, to your spouse. Our relationships are temporary. So the only permanent love that we have available to us is to love the Supreme Lord. And that's where we are actually going to find our eternal, greatest, blissful fulfillment.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.